Hi, my name is Scott Ludlam, and I've just been able to give evidence briefly in the Supreme Court here in the Northern Territory for the Pine Gap Six, or the Peace Pilgrims, who are alleged to have trespassed on the base in September 2016. And there's an interesting dilemma and aspect to court proceedings whereby you can't reflect on anything that happened in Parliament, can't talk about in court committee work, questions of ministers, or actually any of the operations of Parliament, because you're not allowed to talk about anything that's captured by parliamentary privilege in the courts. So it was a very interesting session, I suppose, where the witnesses who called me to give evidence were blocked at every turn from being able to ask about the kind of work that I was doing and that our team was doing when I was in Parliament. Pine Gap, as you're probably aware, is implicated in an illegal United States drone assassination program. It's implicated and has been for decades in nuclear weapons targeting and deployment. And the revelations by whistleblower Edward Snowden and many others since 2013 also tie Pine Gap directly into indiscriminate mass surveillance, which is the most profoundly anti-democratic technical system I think ever deployed in a democracy, or in kindred democracies around the world, including Australia. And of course, those things are on the record, they're very well known, I think they're reasonably well understood in the community, but it was somewhat frustrating to not be able to talk about the fact that on questions of national security, defence, mass surveillance, the operation of Australian armed forces overseas, Parliament's accountability and transparency mechanisms are shut down, they're neutralised, because the major parties simply agree that it be so. And so I don't know that it's all that well understood that Australia functions as something of a one-party state when it comes to these questions of national security, which seem to get broader and broader and broader and occupy an ever greater fraction of public life every year. And it's something that I think we need to think very carefully about. We need to push back on, because it's very, very erosive of democratic practice to have the national security state really withdrawing behind a one-way glass where civilians and ordinary people are expected to suffer incredibly intrusive real-time digital surveillance of their social networks, everybody they contact, financial records and physical location, while the architects of wars that Australia is involved in, while the architects of ever more intrusive powers vanish behind the national security state, vanish from any form of democratic accountability. It's an incredibly dangerous dynamic, and it's one that I think we need to push back on very hard. And I want to acknowledge the role of the Pine Gap Peace Pilgrims in doing that. They've put their bodies on the line, and I think it's important that we all raise our voices and make sure that these people don't go to jail for their courageous actions.